I'm inclined, of course, not to prejudge the new administration and give it a chance to set its course. Obviously, much of the labor movement, particularly the labor leadership, was relatively unhappy about the way the election went. But notwithstanding, Mr. Nixon will be the President of the United States, and it is our hope and trust that he will not feel antagonistic toward the aspirations, ideals, and programs of the American labor movement, which we feel are definitely the aspirations and programs of the American people.
Do you feel those programs and aspirations can be moved forward during 4 years of a Republican administration, or do you have to shoot for 1972?
I don't think it'd be quite fair for me to suggest at this stage of the game, before the president has been inaugurated, that he's going to be a failure as far as the labor movement is concerned. And I'm inclined really to honestly say, let's wait and see. Now then, if conservative elements, Republicans of the North, Democrats of the South, follow their normal predilections as we understand the past, then there'll be problems. I certainly would hope that the new president would not try to forge the kind of alliance that we've had in Congress in the past between the more conservative elements of the Republican Party and the Southern Dixiecrats. But let's wait and see.
Speaking of those alliances, we've had a lot of talk now about the New Politics Party. The George Wallace Party came out in this past election. Do you look in the near future to a liberal party and a conservative party, say, or more of a division between these two instead of conservatives in both parties and liberals in both parties, maybe a division along these lines?
At least for the foreseeable future, I don't expect any change in the party structures. As you know, and as you've indicated by your question, that both parties have great disparities. We have Southern Democrats who, if anything, are more conservative than the more conservative Northern Republicans, and we have some Republicans, particularly, although not exclusively, from the Eastern Seaboard, that resemble, in the main, what we believe to be the liberal principle in America. For the next 4 years, I don't see any serious change in party structure. Now, I don't think it's untoward or far-fetched to believe that one day, perhaps in our time, there will be a serious alignment between so-called liberals and so-called conservatives, although we must be careful about the use of those terms.
You wouldn't look for, then, in the future, somewhat of the same system that Britain has with a Labour Party and a Conservative Party divided that way?
I doubt it for the foreseeable future. Our traditions, political traditions, are so utterly different than theirs that I don't quite see it. Now, I must say that I have a preference for genuine party responsibility, and one day I would hope and trust that we have parties that are meaningful in relation to issues, and those who genuinely stand for those issues line up on that side, and vice versa on the other side. I think this, in the long run, makes democratic sense, but I don't see it in the future, and I suspect our conversation is rather academic.
Getting back then to some practical things like the coming administration, you're the author, I understand, of some pamphlets on social legislation. Do you look for much progress in this field in the new administration?
I hope for it. I am not waiting with bated breath. I would hope that the genuine reform that we need, progress we need in Social Security, in federal standards for unemployment compensation, for a genuine upgrading of welfare programs. I would trust that these will come to pass in the next session of Congress. But I conclude on that issue by indicating, as I said before, that I am not holding my breath. The odds do not favor any serious change in any of these social programs, though in my judgment they're in need of upgrading.
We've experienced some people who have wanted social change, trying to get it in somewhat violent ways. One example may be the Democratic National Convention and protest of this kind. Do you support these types of protests in order to bring about social change? Or?
No, I don't. The labor movement hasn't. Unfortunately, if I may hazard a guess, it was that kind of protest that came over TV that ultimately defeated Hubert Humphrey. Had it not been for that kind of violent expression on both sides, the police as well as the demonstrators, my guess is that Hubert Humphrey would have prevailed. The convention demonstrations set back the Democratic campaign by at least a month or more. And when Hubert Humphrey finally built up steam and achieved some degree of unity, it was just too late. Perhaps wishful thinking, but perhaps a few more days, and he would have made it. I think you can surmise from what I'm saying that I'm not unfriendly to Mr. Hubert Humphrey.
You think Mr. Humphrey will run again for high office?
That I don't know. The Democrats have some excellent candidates. I would have to be a prophet with a crystal ball to determine who will be the candidate for the Democratic Party in 1972. I just don't know.
Okay, thank you very much.